welcome to Full Speed Racing. This week we've got action from the Quaith Intermart League at Silverstone. But first we're at Snetterton as the F3 Cup moves towards the title deciding rounds in late October. At the moment it's a three-way fight between Tristan Cliff, Alice Powell and Alex Craven. Before we go underway with the action, let's catch up on what happened at Silverstone last time out. Two wins at Silverstone closed the championship up very tight, with Tristan Cliff gaining ground. Alice Powell and the pair of them share the front row of the grid. David Scott lines up in third with Alex Craven, who's also in the title hunt, in fourth, and Louis Hamilton-Smith, who starts fifth. Frequently a race winner in the F3 Cup. About ready for the start here at Snetterton. Green flag from the marshal. The revs rise. Will it be the silver car of Cliff who gets the jump from the line? Away we go. It's a poor start for the red machine of David Scott. A good getaway from Dave Kraskus further back, but it's Alice Powell who leads into riches for the first time. Alex Craven follows through in second, so Tristan Cliff down to third. Ollie Ray and Dave Kraskus go side by side in the trophy class for the slightly older cars. It's the Montreal hairpin for the first time, and it's Powell who leads the way from Craven, Cliff, and then David Scott. Louis Hamilton-Smith, also a poor getaway from him. He slipped behind the all-white car of Mark Harrison's. They turn then left, handed into Palmer. They come over the very slight crest in the hill and on towards Agassi. You can see it's a little bit chilly. Alice Powell just weaving around, getting a bit more heat into her tyres as Cliff comes under pressure from David Scott. And Louis Hamilton-Smith makes the move on Harrison. So the Red Bull on the one team employ. Louis Hamilton-Smith moves through, gains the place. Stuart Wiltshire edged out wide. It's getting quite frantic in these early stages. And this is all good news though for Alice Powell, as she's going to try and make good her escape. At the moment it's Alex Craven who's trying to stay with her as the pair of them turn through Williams onto the Bentley straight for the first time of asking. Then it's the silver machine of pole sitter Tristan Cliff, who's got David Scott in his wheel tracks down the Bentley straight, fastest point on the Snetterton circuit. If we hit the brakes, down through the gears into Brundle Nelson, and Scott looking to try and challenge Tristan Cliff. Cliff though knows Snetterton very well, it's his home circuit. He's been in a very rich reign of form recently. 4 wins on the bounce coming to this Snetterton weekend, as Cliff's found the sweet spot himself with his Lara F307. Oh, more problems for Ollie Ray. He was disappointed at Silverstone with what he thought was a faltering engine, and a mechanical issue puts the Kiwi out of the race in the early running. Leading quartet though, just beginning to break clear of Louis Hamilton-Smith, who's trying to close in. And look at Dave Kraskus, who's trying to go to the inside, and Mark Harrison, who sweeps across into Rich's very tight. The experienced Kraskus will have realised there wasn't quite enough ground there, but he leads the trophy class, which is for the pre-2002 cars. Former historic Formula 1 racer Dave Kraskus. His Formula 3 cars a little bit less powerful, but very potent nonetheless. The leading quartet all seem to be closing up on each other a little bit, because Alex Craven is catching Alice Powell, and in turn Cliff is catching Craven. Louis Hamilton-Smith trying to reel them all in. Then we've got that Harrison and Kraskus tussle. And then the next group of cars with Tony Bishop launching to the inside. He's going to be able to squeeze past Stuart Wiltshire there. He's got Nick Robinson immediately ahead of him. It's Wiltshire, teammate to the race leader Alice Powell, looks to try and retaliate. Out of Williams and down the Bentley straight once more for the leaders. We'll have a look at a replay of the start. In car with Tristan Cliff. From our camera shot, it seems to be a relatively good getaway, but yes, he just stays in first gear a little bit too long. Slightly later on the upshift, and that has cost him 2 places. Visor down. Eyes ahead and time to get on with charging back up through the order. See just how close he got to Alex Craven under brake into Montreal. Very lucky, really not to lock wheels and possibly have a little bit of an entanglement. Back to the action, and now Tristan Cliff really beginning to ask some questions of Alex Craven, because Craven is still very much in the championship mix, because whereas Powell and Cliff have both had one or two misfortunes along the way this season, Alex Craven has been metronomically reliable. He always seems to bring the car home in a podium paying position. That means he's steadily been accumulating the points, and so therefore he will be doing everything he can to stay part of this fight for the overall rostrum as they accelerate out of Williams onto the Bentley straight once more. Now, can Tristan Cliff take advantage of the slipstream? I think he can, because Craven moves across the inside the circuit. He knows that Tristan Cliff's trying, and Cliff launches the move around the outside at Brundle. He's got the inside line for Nelson. Super driving from Tristan Cliff up into second position as he and Craven sprint into the bomb hole through the cambered right-hander and off towards Coram Curve in pursuit of Alice Powell. Coram Curve will then tighten into Murray's further back. Tony Bishop looking to mount the challenge on Nick Robinson. Robinson, though, able to withstand the efforts from Bishop, at least into the bomb hole, as Tristan Cliff has got Alex Craven right underneath his gearbox as they turn through Riches. So although Cliff's in second position, he's still got a little bit of work to do to reel in Alice Powell. And the other car to watch for there is the red machine, David Scott, another of the drivers who works in Formula 1, this time for the Mercedes team, who has been on the podium previously in the F3 Cup, who is making this a leading quartet as Bishop looks to challenge Robinson. Robinson, though, moves across, covers the line. In fact, that delays Bishop a little bit through Riches. The race leaders arrive into Agostini, and the leading quartet, they're all covered by about 10 or so car lengths. Fantastic Formula 3 racing this here on the Snetterton 300 circuit. Car then with Tristan Cliff. Another look at his move on Alex Craven. You can see Craven moving to the inside line. Cliff jigs the outside, and in a move that was somewhat patented by Alan Carroll in his finish for 3 days, tries around the outside into Brundle and Nelson up into second position, and now beginning to reel himself into potential to challenge to lead the race. He won't be able to do it this time down the Bentley straight, but he will be able to use the slipstream to tow himself up towards the tail of Alice Powell. You can see already Craven and Scott beginning to engage in battle for third position. So this is the battle that we were all hoping for here at Snetterton. Really, the two drivers who've been the class of the field, certainly in terms of outright pace, all season long. It's been a pretty tough fight between the pair of them, but it's been a fair fight as well, as now Tristan Cliff closes in onto Alice Powell. Dave Carrascus leading the trophy class. Well up the order is Carrascus, although he's got Tony Bishop just beginning to come back at him, as now Tristan Cliff looks to challenge Alice Powell as they turn into Riches. Cliff to the inside, and Powell moves across, they make contact, and they fire themselves off into the tyre wall, and that's a big impact for Alice Powell and Tristan Cliff, as Cliff immediately looking to extricate himself from the cockpit. Alice Powell aiming to do much the same thing. Glad to see that the Lara chassis did what it was designed to do. Unfortunately, both cars very heavily damaged as the pair of them stalk away, and it's very unfortunate that the battle resolves itself in that fashion. It means then that Alex Craven takes over at the head of the field with David Scott up into second position. It will promote Louis Hamilton-Smith to third. It's not done and dusted just yet for Alex Craven, though. He has still got to make it through to the line. Right, in car with Tristan Cliff. What does this tell us? He's trying to make a move on Alice Powell. He's got the inside line into Riches, hits the brakes. There is Powell, moves across, contact is made. It's a nasty impact for Tristan Cliff, the same for Alice Powell. From the outside, Cliff alongside, but not fully so. Alice Powell has to take the corner at some point, and no way out for Tristan Cliff. He was fully committed to the move. Dave Carrascus, he and Tony Bishop about to reignite their battle for 5th and 6th position, as Bishop just beginning to reel in the slightly older car of Dave Carrascus in a 2001 vintage Dallara, the type that took Takuma Sato to the title, as a challenge from the lead for David Scott, who draws alongside Alex Craven and goes through at Riches. Almost a carbon copy of the Powell Cliff manoeuvre, but this time Scott alongside by the time they hit the braking point, David Scott moving to the field, although he outbrakes himself slightly into the hairpin at Montreal. It means that he and Craven sprint towards the left-hander at Palmer. And now David Scott finally able to cover the racing line. Craven, though, might fancy his chances about looking to challenge into Agostini. It's a very short braking zone, though, for Agostini, particularly in these Formula 3 cars, which, relatively speaking, have got significantly more grip than power, where corner speed is absolutely vital. Somewhat rueful, Alice Powell watches on. So teammate Stuart Wiltshire has a quick spin in Norfolk, and he rejoins in 7th position as Tony Bishop closes up onto Dave Carrascus as the pair of them run not quite nose to tail out of Agostini and on towards Hamilton. Meanwhile, though, heading towards the bomb hole for the final time of asking, it is David Scott, who has driven superbly in the second half of the race, having moved clear of Alex Craven. Dave Carrascus at the moment looking fairly well set, you would suggest, to keep Tony Bishop behind him all the way through to the checkered flag, which is very imminent. It goes out now, and it is victory in the F3 Cup here at Snetterton for David Scott. He will be delighted with that. He kept a level head when those around him fell by the wayside. Second place to Alex Craven, and a charging Louis Hamilton-Smith completes the podium with trophy class honours. The other cars going the way of Dave Carrascus. Have a look at the results then, with the victory for Scott. Second place Alex Craven, Hamilton-Smith completes the rostrum from Mark Harrison, Dave Carrascus, Tony Bishop and the rotating Stuart Wiltshire. As the F3 Cup drivers celebrate on the Snetterton rostrum, we'll take a break. Join us in a couple of moments' time with Quaife Intermark League action from Silverstone.